A line was printed on the forebag: self-destruction directed at others. The chairman is waiting for you in his office. A scene she had seen 12 times, a scent she had smelled 12 times, a sensation she had felt 12 times. Freya closed the book. The same day again, a voice came from outside. Madam. Freya did not turn around. All right, Lorenzo, please tell him I'll be there shortly. Lorenzo answered softly. Understood. Freya stepped forward. Her heels clicked against the floor. She suddenly stopped. Looking down, she examined herself. This excessive hairstyle and clothing, the way he saw me. I want to fix it, but there's no time now. Freya turned decisively. So be it. This 12th life. This time it's for him. Max was bent over his desk writing. Freya entered the office. She silently watched him. He looked Freya over. Had been a month already. Every time he came back, he had to see Freya. He had once stayed out all day to avoid it, but today there was nowhere to run. He studied her. She looked a little different. But what was different? She looked the same as always. Was it just his imagination? His gaze swept over her appearance. Those eager clothes, that carefully arranged hairstyle, that vulgar makeup, and that overly strong powdery scent. Was today some important day? Why was she so tense? Max broke the silence. Freya met his eyes. Go ahead. Max looked back at her. That same sense of discord again. She looked exactly as usual. It was her expression. The Freya in his memory was always angry, desperate, or mad. A woman crazed over Max Russell. That was how everyone judged her. Max's fingers trembled faintly. Did she know something? But what of it? I won't back down anymore. 10 years of engagement. 5 years of marriage. At last, he said the words to the woman before him. Let's divorce. Then it would begin, hysterical crying, frantic smashing, and then another round of clingy pleading. The same weary inevitability. Max waited for the outburst, but there was only silence. What was going on? Max finally spoke. Why aren't you answering? Do you think my feelings have changed? Freya answered calmly. No, that's not it, Max. I know you mean it. Much frosh. What? Freya looked at him. Believe me. Max, I accept. Yes, let's divorce. Max's blue eyes flew open. He was completely stunned. Impossible. There was a calm on Freya's face he had never seen before. There was even the faintest trace of a smile. 2 years from now, a 15-year obsession would end by Max's own hand. And for the first time, Freya had accepted his true feelings. But there was one condition. May was the month of the Virgin. Marriages held then were said to be doomed to misfortune. Even without such superstition, that wedding had already stirred the whole city. The surviving royal bloodline that had endured dynasties, revolution, and coup. The only daughter of a distinguished noble house. And the groom was Max Russell, grandson of the revolutionary hero who had overthrown that dynasty. The guests applauded on the surface, but mocked them mercilessly in private. Even a cat and a dog would make a better match than those two. Only the bride knew none of it. Freya smiled brilliantly. At his only daughter's wedding, Duke Blanc spared no expense to support the celebration. After many twists and turns, it arrived at a so-called happy ending. A couple who would live happily ever after. That was their beginning. It was also the prelude to their tragedy. Mira combed Freya's long hair. You seem to be in a good mood today. Freya looked at the maid in the mirror. Doi. Mira smiled. Yes, you've had such a hard time lately and haven't slept properly, but you look much better today. Freya's gaze passed over the wedding portrait. Yes, that's right. Memories before yesterday are already very blurry. Mira asked softly, how long will the chairman stay this time? Freya closed her eyes. Who knows? Max is obviously swamped with work, yet he hurried back just to announce the divorce. He was that desperate. If I had refused, he would have left yesterday. But now, Freya said softly, he'll probably stay home all week. Myra's eyes lit up at once. Really? That's wonderful. Then will you spend your wedding anniversary together? Getting through yesterday safely meant a great deal to Mira. For the past 2 years, after all, Max and I had fought nearly every day. Myra's fingers slipped through Freya's hair. Fine. Yesterday's peace had nothing to do with Max. Our marriage had already collapsed. Freya spoke. Mira, I need to sort out my wardrobe. Mira sounded surprised. Oh, yes. The wardrobe doors were pulled open. Dresses of every color hung from the racks. Bright and eye-catching, but they were only gaudy dresses desperately trying to flaunt the body. Freya, turn around. Call Mrs. Purnell to handle these. Mira asked, should I have them packed up? Freya selected a few from among them. No, get rid of all of them except these. These few are passable. Mira said, all right. Then should I contact Madame Borton? Freya refused. No need, Mira asked in confusion. You're not planning to order new clothes? Those dresses I once collected obsessively, all just to catch Max's attention. In this house that I'll soon be leaving, I don't want to leave behind any unnecessary baggage. Freya explained. I mean, there's no need to call an expensive dressmaker. I'll just go to the department store myself this weekend. Mira stared. The only daughter of Duke Blank's house. Then her face brightened. Yes, of course. You haven't gone out in ages. Let's visit the newly opened Louvre department store. Freya's eyes curved faintly. Right, let's stop by Printemps as well. Mira tilted her head. Printemps? I've never heard of it. Is that new too? Freya's expression froze for a moment. Printemps hasn't opened yet. She immediately corrected herself. No, I remembered wrong. Mira nodded. I see. Knock, knock. Someone rapped on the door. A woman's voice came from outside. Mrs. Russell requests your presence. Myra's expression stiffened. Right? It was time. There were 2 Mrs. Russells in this house. When the 2 ladies gathered in one room, I was no longer the Mrs. Russell. Freya, enter the room. Mathilde, you were looking for me. Mathilde sat upright. The corners of her eyes lifted elegantly. Freya. Lately, she signaled to the maid beside her. Serve tea to Mrs. Freya. Mrs. Freya, a way of addressing me by my given name instead of my surname. It was mother-in-law Mathilde's invention, a name more suited to some woman off the street. It was the 3rd year of my marriage, the year I turned 20. At 20, my first kiss and all my naivety had been left at the wedding. The first time I heard that form of address, the humiliation made me run from the room. Back then, I truly was young and foolish. Freya lowered her eyes. I'm well, thank you. I've already had tea. Mathilde let out a soft laugh. Oh, is that so? She ordered the maid. Mrs. Freya says she doesn't need tea. The maid bowed. Yes, madam. Understood. The maids exchanged glances. She's going to throw a fit again, isn't she? Will she cry this time too? Freya asked calmly. Mrs. Russell, why did you call me here? Mathilde's breathing faltered, the driving force that had pushed me into madness after marriage. Facing Mathilde Russell before her directly, Freya sat quietly and waited. Mathilde regained her composure. Ah yes, to business. Now that Max has taken over your father's business, the standing of the Russell family is no longer what it once was. At a time like this, a wife's support is the key to a successful career. I plan to open a charity salon in the name of Mrs. Russell. Could you help cover the expenses? Freya raised her eyes. I'm afraid not. Mathilde's expression froze instantly. What? What do you mean by that? Freya's tone was perfectly calm. Because you are Mrs. Russell. Mother, if it is in your name, then the expenses should naturally be paid from your personal assets. Mathilde let out an aggressive laugh. At the very least, it should come from the Russell family's assets. Freya, how can Mrs. Russell refer only to me? Surely you're not refusing me over a few harmless jokes. Mathilde pressed a hand to her forehead and sighed. What a disappointment. Is that all there is between us? If you truly dislike it that much, I'll just speak to Max. It was always like this. Before things could reach Max, she used pressure to force me into surrender. That was how she controlled me. Freya said calmly, please do. Mathilde leaned back. What? She was stunned by my sudden change. Mathilde's face twisted in anger. In the early days of marriage, I had once regarded her as if she were my real mother. But that trust soon shattered into lies. Even after seeing through her malice, I still could not resist. All because I wanted to win Max's favor at any cost, never realizing it would only deepen his disgust. Now it was time to end this farce. Freya lifted her eyes. As you said, Mother, it would be best to discuss this with your son. Mathilde looked down at her haughtily. Are you protesting because Max has started paying you some attention? Freya, I told you long ago, men have no resistance to temptation. The dress you wore yesterday suited you better. You should be more forward. Freya answered quietly, yes. You advised me to dress a little more frivolously. But Max doesn't seem like that. Mathilde's voice turned shrill. Freya, what nonsense are you saying? What did I ever tell you to dress indecently? Go ask Max and see who he believes. Freya's tone settled into calm again. All right, that works too. I'll take the chance to tell my husband everything. Then we can act like strangers. Freya added calmly. We should each live our own lives, Mother. Mathilde's face hardened. What? Freya stood up. I've said everything I needed to. I'll be leaving now. Why you dare? Mathilde shouted behind her. Freya. But the corners of Freya's lips rose slightly. I should have done this long ago. I never expected such a simple choice had once been impossible for me. Mathilde clenched her teeth, trembling with voiceless rage. Mathilde took a seat across the long table. Max, I apologize for disturbing you. Max looked up. It's fine. Please go on. Mathilde touched her lips with her fingertips. I've kept silent until now, but I must speak. I always said I got along well with Freya. That wasn't true. I only wanted to reassure you, but it seems I only made things worse. Max gave a faint smile. Yesterday, Freya agreed to a divorce. Today, Mother comes to confess that she doesn't get along with her daughter-in-law. So tomorrow, will my runaway father come home too? Mathilde's face sank into shadow. Freya was never worthy of my son from the beginning. The only thing he lacks is noble blue blood. He has the finest looks in the Empire and the ability to turn a debt-ridden steelworks into a profitable enterprise. That runaway father of his left behind a goose that lays golden eggs. He even inherited the name of the revolutionary hero Max. Russell, aren't there even rumors that a princess enrolled in the Imperial boarding school just to see my Max? A marriage alliance between the Russells and the Imperial family is hardly impossible, but I've endured until now. Do you think I couldn't speak even if I wanted to? Mathilde looked at Max. She seems mentally unstable. Since marrying you, she's only grown stranger. She wears vulgar clothes to cling to you, and she suspects you of having affairs. In the end, didn't last year's incident prove it? I don't think it's a good idea to leave it alone. Mathilde put on a pained expression. I'm heartbroken too. Even the Duke's family wouldn't be able to oppose sending an insane wife to a hospital. Lock her up for a month first and see how she is. Max lowered his gaze. I didn't expect Mother to interfere this far, but that doesn't mean I'll do as she wants. He looked up. I'll handle Freya's matter personally. Mathilde hurried to agree. Of course. I trust you can deal with it properly. She rose to her feet. I've taken too much of your time. She turned and left, all warmth gone from her face. Max remained alone at the table. He leaned back and pressed his fingers against the bridge of his nose. A trace of grim resolve flashed through his blue eyes. A splendid corridor stretched into the distance. Footsteps echoed through the emptiness. Max walked alone. He stopped before a pair of white double doors. People seemed to have forgotten what Freya Blanc once was. She had once been the Blanc family's white rose, the most precious crimson bloom, the flower most difficult to raise. That was Freya. The star of the birthday banquet had vanished, and the competition among fathers began at once. All of them wanted to connect their sons to her. Max, too, had been pushed forward by his father in order to find her. He finally found Freya in the library. Without even looking up, she said, I told you, don't bother me. Max only smiled, just like the rumors said, like a flower too delicate to grow. He stepped forward. Everyone is looking for you. Freya trembled suddenly. She lifted her head. I thought my rudeness would make her drive me away, but Freya didn't. Freya spoke slowly. Everyone is looking for me. That isn't true. The servants know. My father probably knows too. It's a fairy tale about a prince saving a princess in a tower. Freya shut her book. What are you doing? Max extended his hand. You want to be alone, don't you? Someone will come soon. He smiled faintly. Come on, I'll take you somewhere no one can find you. Freya looked at him. If I go with you, then I won't be alone anymore. Max's smile did not change. You'll still come with me. Why? Because I'll be the one who saves you from here. Max knelt on one knee. He held out his hand to Freya. Freya's cheeks flushed faintly, and her gaze dropped. Their hands clasped lightly. Light seemed to cover everything. The servants, ordered to find them, discovered them at a distant chapel. Facing the furious Duke Blanc and the sweat-soaked Mr. and Mrs. Russell, Freya tightened her grip on Max's hand. Father, this boy is my prince. Freya smiled brightly. I've decided to marry Max. And just like that, Max Russell, who had abducted Freya, became the prince of the Duke's only daughter. If I had ever truly been a prince, then perhaps that first meeting would have become a romantic memory. But in reality, I was nothing but a puppet, manipulated by a father blinded by wealth and power, playing at being a gentle nobleman. That was the beginning of our first misfortune. Mira stood holding a tray, her face full of shock. Master, Max turned around. You may go. Outside the door, Mira quietly clenched her fist, delighted. They've been getting along so well lately. Max entered the room. Freya was sitting on the sofa. Mira, thank you. Just leave it there. She raised her eyes and saw that it was Max. She asked calmly, Max, what brings you here? Max looked at her steadily. I heard there was trouble between you and Mother. Freya lowered her gaze. Is that so? Did you come because of that? Freya Russell didn't welcome him. She was practically a different person. His mother's words passed through Max's mind. Mug spoke. What did you and Mother discuss? Even I think the excuse sounds flimsy. Yes, it was only when Mother mentioned Freya's mental state that I decided to come. I was probably angry, which is why I came to Freya on purpose. Freya said, nothing special. Mother suggested I use my dowry to open a salon. I refused. Now that I think about it, she had never once confided in me about the problems or hardships she faced after the wedding. Ah, that damned word love. Memories shattered like glass. Freya's lips had always spoken of nothing but love. We had only just agreed to divorce, and Mother was already revealing the conflicts Freya had hidden all this time. And apparently they were serious. You were the one who added the condition of 2 years to the divorce and demanded secrecy. What do you mean by this now? Are you trying to use Mother to stop the divorce? Revealing your conflict with her and saying it's to prevent cracks in our relationship. Doesn't that itself seem suspicious? Distrust and hostility had piled up too deeply. What should I do? Freya's voice remained calm. I don't need tricks like that. As long as I object, we can't divorce. I already told Mother. It doesn't matter if you know too. I'm simply tired of the life I'm living now. A faint curve touched Max's lips. That doesn't sound like something Freya, who has everything, would say. Max, I know it's hard for you to believe me. I've made mistakes. It's my responsibility to earn back your trust. Compared to that, sneaking naked into a sleeping husband's bed was almost cute. I had once sent people to watch his every move out of anxiety and investigated every woman he had met. Let's draft the divorce agreement. Today we'll just make a first draft. You can revise the final version. Freya tapped the papers lightly. After that, we'll have it notarized by the royal office. Then you'll believe me too, right? Max stared at her. Where had she learned about format and notarization? She shouldn't have had any chance to see a contract until now. Max narrowed his eyes slightly. Even if Freya wanted to draft a contract disadvantageous to him, if I truly set my mind to it, I could turn it into a trap. Freya met his gaze. Max, if you trust me, I could write 100 contracts like this. I truly don't want to keep living like this anymore, because I know too well how that ending looks. Auguste held up a newspaper, a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Max, did you see today's paper? Max listened expressionlessly. Auguste continued. There's an illustration of you and your wife in it. Quite convincing, actually. In a newspaper illustration, a woman knelt before a man. The man's face had been deliberately blacked out. The sensational headline read, "Obsession Beyond Status. Love or Death." Max turned his head slightly in silence. Auguste leaned over the desk toward him. I heard Mrs. Russell asked you to draft a divorce agreement, and you actually agreed. I'd sooner believe a hen would grow teeth. Max's eyes fell to the document. She attached conditions. Auguste grew even more suspicious. That only makes it more suspicious. She wants to be your business partner for 2 years. What kind of scheme is this? Max lowered his gaze, deep in thought. I was the one who proposed it at first. What exactly is she thinking? I want to learn management. After the divorce, I'll inherit the Blanc family anyway. Let's be business partners for 2 years. Teach me. Auguste's finger nearly jabbed Max. And then there's this clause in the contract. Clause 8, special provision, stood out clearly. Until the divorce is finalized, both parties must fully perform their marital duties. Auguste's voice was full of caution. Isn't this obviously a trap? Max lowered his head even more. A trap? If it was that woman who spoke only of love, then she would use the final method. That doesn't matter. Unless you think I can't avoid a trap. Auguste straightened. Then what does matter? Max stared at the desktop. Whether I can handle it. Auguste let out a mocking laugh. Handle it? Don't tell me Max Russell can't even handle a mere conjugal obligation. Max's eyes darkened. No, what I'm afraid of is that I might want to. Auguste picked up the contract. From every angle, this is a favorable agreement. Even breaching it wouldn't lead to serious consequences. His eyes skimmed the clauses, especially this one. If the divorce is completed within 2 years, the mining rights will be transferred to you. It's as if she knows exactly what the company needs right now. That only makes it more suspicious. Auguste tapped a name with his finger. Auguste de Laporte, eldest son of the banking family, a man who made no effort to hide his hatred of nobles. He despised Freya Blanc. As the only heir of Duke Blanc, her twisted obsession with Max was more than enough to earn the hatred of someone like Auguste. Auguste moved to the window. We also have to consider the possibility that this contract is influenced by the Blanc family. The Duke is the kind of man who would stop at nothing. His voice turned cold, even if it means pushing his own daughter into the mud, stripping her of her rights, and preventing her from using any family assets. Max's gaze turned icy. Enough. Auguste rubbed the back of his neck and smiled helplessly. Even now, there's still a soft place left in your heart. Then he grew serious again. I'll first investigate whether any business information was leaked. Maybe some employee got greedy for her money. And I'll also check whether Freya and the Duke have been in contact recently. He allowed a satisfied little laugh. Now that sounds like you. Freya's lips curved upward. I'm looking forward to the next 2 years. My former husband-to-be. Max stared at her. Not yet. Freya extended her hand. I was just rehearsing. Max took her hand. A long-forgotten warmth spread across his palm. The smile faded from Freya's face, and something settled in her eyes. She's probably about to ask what today's date is, Max thought. Go inside first. I have to head to the office. Freya nodded. All right, see you later. The two turned and walked in different directions. Max suddenly stopped. Strange. What is this feeling? Regret? Toward Freya Blanc? Max abruptly turned back. Impossible. If he had to describe it, it was closer to love and hate tangled together. Max's expression tightened. A trace of determination passed across Freya's profile. It's fine. This will work. This time for sure. Mira looked at Mrs. Freya. Shall we sit in the department store lounge for a while? Freya's gaze drifted into the distance. The department store. For high society, a department store was not merely a place to shop. It was also a silent battlefield of social maneuvering. At this hour, he should be here too. Since the thought had occurred to her, she had to confirm it. Freya made up her mind. All right, before we leave, let's rest there for a while. A grand door was pushed open. Freya and Mira walked in. The atmosphere suddenly became very strange. In an instant, the entire lounge fell silent. Every gaze focused on the doorway. Crisp heels clicked softly. Mamai, a gray-haired woman held a folding fan, a mocking smile on her lips. I truly never expected Mrs. Freya to come to a place like this. The noble women whispered among themselves. That's the notorious woman from last year. A powdered lady covered her mouth with her fan. I heard she imagined her husband was cheating, secretly investigated him, and even threatened every woman he had ever met. And when threats failed, she even tried to make those women disappear in secret. The infamous Mrs. Russell. The whispers spread like poison. Good heavens, he must have suffered terribly. I heard the last person she targeted was Lady Rossignol, a married woman. How disgraceful. This is the tragedy of Mr. Russell being too perfect. That devilish obsession dragged him into Blanc Castle. The powdered lady's eyes were full of contempt. Who would call such terrifying feelings love? Obsession and madness are far more accurate. Not a ripple crossed Freya's face. She spoke slowly. Has anyone here actually spoken to those ladies? Freya's eyes swept over the room. I mean the women I supposedly threatened. The powdered lady tapped her palm with her fan. Do you need to meet them? The newspapers explained everything very clearly. As the person involved, you ought to remember best. Freya remained calm. Yes, of course I remember. That used to be my life. Freya looked directly at her. I did not threaten them. I made them offers. If they disappeared from my husband's life, I would give them what they wanted. Not one of them refused. What kind of threat is that? The powdered lady was momentarily speechless. Then, they must have been afraid of your retaliation. Freya closed her eyes. If anything, they looked down on me instead. I begged them not to sway my husband. If they had truly feared me, those newspaper articles would never have appeared. A pink-haired, noble woman finally spoke up. Then what about Lady Rossignol? I heard thugs you hired nearly kidnapped her. Freya lowered her gaze. She never gave me a chance to meet her. I only forced an appointment. I swear I had no intention of harming her. Besides, I was in the carriage that went to fetch her. She refused too firmly, so we returned immediately. But the newspapers called me a failed kidnapper. The ladies around them murmured. I admit that forcing the marriage and investigating those women were real, but I will never accept being condemned for things I did not do. Freya lifted her chin, her gaze sharp as a saw. This is the first time I've spoken publicly about this matter. Her eyes locked on one person. Tell me, would that make a good article, Lady Tristan? Solon's face went deathly pale, her body stiff with fear. One of the noble women suddenly realized. Come to think of it, isn't the Tristan family the owner of the 19th century? Back then, they published several articles too. No, to be precise, the 19th century was the first paper to print statements from those women. Solon averted her eyes and coughed lightly. I am not very familiar with my family's newspaper. Freya stared at her back. Is that so? Then I suppose I'll have to ask Marquis Tristan personally. Solon turned around in alarm. It's already been half a year. Bringing it up now won't benefit you either, madam. Freya turned her head, expression calm. I think so too. Besides, the claims of threats and kidnapping were never proven. How can we believe you now? Everyone said they would sue me, yet not one person actually took me to court. Why did no one question that at the time? A faint smile touched Freya's lips. Isn't that strange? Freya looked at Solon. Those who don't believe me will continue to doubt me. That is their freedom, just as this is mine. I have the right to know who pushed me into that state. Freya turned and left with Mira. Then please enjoy the rest of your time. Myra's hand touched the door. It was slightly ajar. Strange. I was sure I closed it when I came in. Mira apologized in flustered haste. Madam, I'm sorry. I caused you trouble. Freya's expression was gentle. I came of my own will. Why are you apologizing? Just as I thought. That suspicious source was gone. The news that I met Sol and Tristan today would soon reach the marquee. Freya Russell's resentment over last year's events. Her gaze hardened. One by one, step by step. I will change everything. Her eyes sharpened, so that tragedy would never happen again. A voice echoed in her mind. Freya Blanc, are you satisfied now? Dusk gathered at the edge of the cliff. Max looked down below. Freya looked up through streaming tears. Max's voice was cold. Look at what your love has turned me into. Freya reached out, grabbing helplessly at the empty air. Her fingers dug into the dirt, clutching the edge of the cliff with desperate force. He was right. I had gone mad. She curled up on the ground, tears pouring down. This could never be love. Blanc lowered his gaze, his tone heavy. It seems they shook off our men on purpose. Auguste crossed his arms. You mean they noticed the tail? Blanc replied in a low voice. That appears to be the case. He continued his report. We clearly saw the two of them enter that building, but only the maid came out. Until the store closed, no one else emerged. How disappointing. Tailing two women should have been simple. Auguste tapped the desk with his fingers. See, I told you this was a waste of effort. Auguste had insisted on sending men to follow them, but I hadn't expected it to end like this. A mocking smile tugged at Max's lips. Not only did she notice the surveillance, she slipped away completely. So absurd it was almost funny. The door shut with a heavy thud. Auguste turned to Max. We should have used the same people your wife hired in the first place. We only found out we were being followed after Lady Rossignol made a huge scene. At least their skills were solid. Moments like this always remind me of reality. I've already been abandoned by my family. If I could still use the Del Laporte name. Auguste spread his arms with a helpless look. Then neither your wife nor her father would have noticed. Muck spoke flatly. You weren't abandoned. You crawled out on your own. If you go back, you can reclaim your place as eldest son anytime. That's one way to see it, I suppose. Anyway, don't you find it strange, Your Excellency? Max asked what? Your wife, Auguste continued. You heard what Mrs. Russell did in the department store lounge. She openly denied those old reports. She even brought up the 19th century and challenged the Dowager Marchioness. And on top of that, she shook off our tale. The more I hear, the more she sounds nothing like the Mrs. Russell we knew. Max's eyes wavered. She really has changed, suddenly, in a way that makes me wonder whether she's still the person I knew. Especially when she said she had been forced into marriage. When did she start thinking that way? As far as I knew, Freya always believed our marriage had saved me. I'm certain she truly believed that. Then how did she find out? Max touched his lips with his hand. I can't guess when her thoughts changed. Who told her and how much? What exactly did they say to her? Purnell placed a hand over her chest. Mrs. Russell, it is my honor to see you. Freya smiled and gestured to Mrs. Purnell. Thank you for coming. Please seat, Enos. Purnell's husband had once been the eldest son of a fallen count's family. After he died in the Imperial War, she became the head of the family. In an age when businesswomen among the nobility were seen as shameful, Purnell displayed extraordinary talent for commerce. Her second-hand clothing business flourished, making her a role model for widows and divorced women. Purnell stood confidently, a faint smile on her lips. Freya got straight to the point. I would like to sell my dresses through your boutique. Purnell answered pleasantly. I'd be delighted to take you on as a client. It would obviously benefit me as well, though I'm not sure this is what you need. Freya smiled faintly. Behind those words was Purnell's polite refusal. Freya understood perfectly. Such a reaction was only natural. No woman wanted to get entangled with Freya Russell. It might have been different when she was still Freya Blanc. The name Freya Russell meant a noble woman who had abandoned her family to marry a commoner. A woman driven mad by her husband and mocked in the newspapers. A prisoner locked in a cage of rumors. Freya leaned forward, breaking through the false courtesy. To be blunt, I plan to inherit a title within 2 years. She added with a smile. Of course, this must remain confidential. Purnell's pupil shrank, leaving her momentarily speechless. I see. She wants to build her own base of support in the business world. She's preparing for something that will require backing. Purnell clasped her hands together. Should I seize this opportunity? If I join forces with Freya, I can support her at her weakest moment, or I may fall right alongside her. Freya suddenly shifted direction. You're planning a new clothing business, aren't you? Purnell jolted. How did you know that? Are you some kind of fortune teller? Freya sat upright. How I know? Is that important? Purnell's face turned grave. Yes, it is. Only two contracted seamstresses know. I've told no one else, and they would never dare gossip. But you know information you should not know. Mrs. Purnell, walls have ears. Freya lifted her teacup. There are no eternal secrets in this world. She smiled. This little problem is far less important than whether my proposal can move you. Purnell's business instincts were stirred. At the very least, I should hear her plan. Purnell sat up straighter. Very well, go on. Freya's tone was calm. It's nothing grand. I simply want to tell you that I'll soon re-enter high society, and I will be very active in it, fully exercising every right that belongs to the only daughter of the Blanc family. Freya continued. Mrs. Purnell, your business sense is extraordinary, but in some fields, instinct alone is not enough. For example, the Palace of Versailles. Purnell froze. Freya's voice was calm and firm. As you know, no matter how ugly things became, I'm still a member of the Blanc family. There was absolute confidence in Freya's smile. Purnell thought to herself, who said she was a fool who knew nothing but love? She's a fox, proud, cunning, and keenly aware of how to shine. Freya lightly touched the necklace at her throat. At least within the Empire, if matchmakers truly dislike pure white Blanc, then what do you think of my proposal? Purnell's thoughts raced. Has she been deliberately deceiving everyone all along? This woman who even staged lovers' quarrels, is she really Freya Blanc? One thing was certain. From now on, I'm gonna like white very much. Freya smiled as well. Then let's go choose some dresses. Purnell was just about to speak when the door suddenly slammed open. Mathilde burst in. Freya, you have a guest, and you didn't tell me? Freya explained calmly. Mathilde, Mrs. Purnell came to discuss business. She wants to sell some old dresses she no longer wears. Mathilde turned to Purnell. Mrs. Purnell, at the last salon we hardly had a chance to speak. Purnell wiped her hand. That's true enough. Mathilde's gaze returned to Freya. But Freya, getting rid of your dresses is a little sudden. You should at least have told me beforehand. Freya looked away. I didn't realize I needed permission even for something like that. Mathilde cleared her throat, looking a bit embarrassed. Permission? That's not what I meant. I only meant that if I had known earlier, perhaps I could have prepared things more thoroughly. Purnell smiled. You've treated me very well already. Please don't say that. What a formidable woman. Mathilde stammered. All right. Come to think of it, I need a new dress too. Perhaps I should order one as well. Freya's tone stayed flat. Mathilde, this lady is not an ordinary seamstress. I barely secured her under the Blanc name, not the Russell one. I'm afraid I can't include you this time. Mathilde's cheeks reddened. Forget it. I'll look around the boutique myself. How about this weekend? Purnell answered with a smile. Certainly. I'll prepare a few suitable styles in advance. Mathilde's smile vanished. A hard shadow fell across her face as the door closed. Max has been looking at you more lately, and now you're getting carried away. Freya turned around. What exactly are you talking about all of a sudden? Mathilde's voice sharpened. When he never looked at you before, who cared for you? There's a limit to ingratitude. How long do you think Max's interest will last? This is all thanks to me, and you don't even know it. He only pities you. There were too many openings. She had exposed herself. I heard you spoke with Max recently. Mathilde turned away. Did Max tell you? No, I heard it from someone else. Just like you, mother. Mathilde's face stiffened. What did you say? Freya stepped closer, leaning near Mathilde. Someone said you wanted to send me to a hospital. To dare say such a thing in front of the only daughter of the Blanc family, and still expect no consequences. She had never imagined those words would reach my ears. It was someone else who told me that I had once been locked in a hospital. All to deal with someone like me. Mathilde's shadow lowered in the dark. Mother, it seems you've misunderstood. A cold smile tugged at Freya's lips. If you drive a madwoman too hard, she will bite. Mathilde shuddered all over. Freya smiled gently. You're fortunate, Mother, because I didn't go mad. In Dr. Sigmund's consultation room, Mrs. Russell, you claim that you are repeatedly reliving the same stretch of time. The black veil hung down, hiding Freya's face. She sat perfectly still. What makes you think that? Freya's voice was calm. The reason for this veil is not important. The doctor pressed. Then what is? Freya tilted her head slightly. What matters is what I am about to ask of you. You were originally from Delan, were you not? The doctor's expression froze instantly. Freya's voice remained calm and sharp. You came to Grande Seine last year and opened a clinic. Because the medical establishment there strongly opposed the use of hypnosis, you fled here. Isn't that so? The doctor's gaze turned wary. Have you been investigating me? I only want you to understand that agreeing to my request is in your best interest as well. Beneath the veil, the corner of Freya's lips curved faintly. The doctor's voice dropped. What exactly do you want? If it's anything illegal, I refuse. Freya's tone was light. Don't worry. It is entirely legal here. Freya folded her hands together. I want to use hypnosis to erase my memory. The doctor fell silent for a moment. I was only 15 minutes late because I was organizing case files, and he walked in just as I was about to lock the door. I should have been wary the moment I saw his morning clothes. The doctor picked up his pen. Regarding the memory you wish to erase, do you mean what you claim? That repeatedly recurring period? Freya's answer was brief. You could say that. I need you to erase from my mind all memories concerning one particular person. The doctor looked at her. Such a complicated request. Yet she said it so lightly. The doctor asked, why do you want to erase your memories of him? Freya's voice was utterly flat. As I said, I am repeating the past over and over. I am reliving his death. The doctor wrote down a note. I see. When did that gentleman die? Freya answered quietly. He is still alive. The doctor stared at her in disbelief. What did you say? Freya lowered her hand slightly. Whether you believe me or not does not matter. You only need to help me clear him out of my mind. The doctor looked thoughtful. To erase from her memory the repeated deaths of a living man. This was interesting, but Freya stared at him through the veil. Do I look insane to you? You're right. I am insane. So do not waste time judging whether it is true. Just grant my request. The doctor leaned back in his chair. Very well, but if I am to treat you, madam, whether your story is true is quite important. Freya sat straight back. Doctor, I'm not here as a patient. I am here to ask for your help, and it will benefit you as well. Freya slid a check across the desk. Most importantly, I know you are pretending. You find the situation extremely interesting. Freya's tone allowed no doubt, and I know you will ultimately accept my offer. Indeed, it was impossible to refuse. A powerful patron, an intriguing patient, two birds with one stone. A bead of cold sweat slid down as the doctor put his hand over the check. His cheeks burned. A complete defeat to curiosity. The check. Curiosity. Money. Freya rose. Come to number 11 Rue La Charrière this Sunday. If you do not appear, I will report the check as stolen. In fact, I know who you are, madam. Beneath the veil, Freya's lips lifted. A mere veil could not hide her fame. The doctor leaned forward slightly. Answer me one thing. The person who keeps dying in your memories, is he your husband? Freya's slender hands tightened slightly. In the winter when I was 23, in my first life, my husband died before my eyes, and it was by my own hand. I once tried to follow him in death, but when I woke up, I had returned to the spring when I was 22. I have been trapped between the spring of 22 and the summer of 24, struggling desperately just to save his life. And you are my only hope of escaping this hell. Freya raised a hand and lightly touched the edge of her veil. The doctor looked at her. You are not afraid I might tell others your story? Freya's veil did not stir. No, you swore the Hippocratic Oath. Unless severely threatened, you would not violate it. The doctor leaned back slightly. The way you speak, it is as if you have known me from the beginning. Freya's voice came quietly. I told you, I am repeating the past again and again. The carriage jolted along the road. Freya looked out the window, her expression dim. In the past, I never questioned why Father Max let those negative articles spread. I should have asked back then how the newspapers obtained information about those women in the 19th district, and why Duke Blanc did not protect the reputation of his only heir. I once held no resentment toward Father. Now I understand. I know what I must do. Freya turned toward Mira. This summer, we may spend some time at Blanc Castle. Mira looked startled. Yes, madam. I understand your reaction. That castle likely holds no good memories. Myra's cheeks reddened. Madam, I like how you are now. Freya looked at her quietly. Myra's voice was sincere. Do not mind what others think. I only hope you can live as freely as you do now. I only hope you will no longer suffer. Madam, in every life, no matter what happened, she was the only child who never left me and never betrayed me. Freya smiled gently. So do I, Mira. I also hope I will not have to suffer anymore. But does that mean I can let down my guard forever? Mathilde's voice was sharp. Max, I am telling the truth. Have I ever interfered in your marriage before? If the matter were not serious, I would never do such a thing. Freya remained silent. That woman truly is insane. A footman bowed. Madam, you have returned. Mathilde's face darkened. We will discuss this later. Mathilde, he has only behaved himself for a few days. Freya said to Mira, I will go alone. You should rest. Yes, madam. Freya walked alone toward her room. Max turned around. Do not mind, mother. Freya looked at him quietly. He never normally set foot in my room. Freya said, I won't. I did not expect you to come today. What is it? Mupshgeish was probing. Does he not know I had someone follow him? Or is he pretending? Max said, I only wanted to confirm one thing. I heard you claim that article was false. Freya stood silently. I used to like him like this. Before our relationship completely fell apart, Max had always been this straightforward, though I had not expected him to be shameless enough to admit to having me followed. To be precise, I said part of the article was true. Max suspected you of having an affair, so I hired someone to investigate those women. Then I want to see them. That part is true. Her tone was even. But the accusations of blackmail or attempted kidnapping made by Madame Rossignol were lies. Believe it or not. Max pressed on. Then why did you say nothing at the time? Freya's voice sank lower. I wanted to, but you were furious then. I was afraid you would not believe me, and that you would despise me. Is that all you wanted to confirm? Silence fell between them. I have something to say as well. Max looked at her. What is it? Freya's expression stayed calm. I want to start going to the office next Monday. Would that be possible? Max's blue eyes were full of scrutiny. You know that gives you only 2 days? You are in such a hurry. Is there some reason? Freya smiled faintly. I can see the suspicion in your eyes. It cannot be helped. Just as Max suspects. I really do have reasons to hurry. Freya continued. Since those women all go there regularly, and I alone am excluded, it is terribly unfair. So I have decided to go too. Max's body stiffened slightly. What? Are you afraid I might do something insane at your company? Max answered, I cannot say I'm not worried. I promise you. Freya smiled with calm confidence. What happened last year will never happen again. Max looked at her in silence, his gaze unreadable. Mathilde paced through a lavish room, footsteps echoing. The butler stood off to one side, motionless. Mathilde stopped abruptly. What on earth is going on? Who leaked the matter of the hospital to Freya? Mathilde turned to the butler, her voice sharp. Butler, have you not found them yet? The butler bowed slightly. No, madam. It is difficult to identify the servant who secretly spoke with that lady. Mathilde was beside herself with fury, then dismissed them all and hire an entirely new staff. She slammed a fan onto the floor. Damn it, nothing is going smoothly. Mathilde lowered her head, her shoulders trembling with anger. The plan to have Freya hospitalized has fallen apart. I cannot get my hands on her dowry. I cannot hold my position in high society. And expand in my salon is out of the question. Mathilde clenched her skirt. Arrogant little brat. But that girl would never dare defy Max. A slow smile spread across Mathilde's lips. That's right, since it has come to this. I had better remind my daughter-in-law of her place. No, better yet, crush her completely. Make an example of her. That would be far more effective. Inside the club, one gentleman unfolded a newspaper, drawing comments from his companions. Madam made the papers again today. I saw it too. A gentleman jabbed his finger at the newspaper. Theodore Dupre stood beside him. One of the others let out a snicker. Surely only the lady herself failed to recognize it. The caricature is exaggerated, but no noblewoman of rank would fail to know him. I suppose so. I had no idea that drawing was by Theodore Dupre. Even if she recognized it, she probably would not care. The man abruptly stiffened. Madame Russell. The man froze all over, cold sweat sliding down. Freya smiled slightly. Thank you for recognizing me, though we have never met before. Is my husband inside? The man sprang up so suddenly that his chair screeched backward. Ah, yes. Madam, he is inside. My apologies. Freya's eyes fell on a newspaper on the table. How interesting. An ordinary outing last Saturday has become the subject of conversation. After the department store scandal, Freya recalled standing beside Mira in that gallery, constantly aware of hidden eyes watching them. So one satirical drawing was nothing. But if this was a response to my conversation with Madame Tristan, then it was absurd. Freya's gaze turned cold. Were they doing this knowingly or pretending ignorance? Madame Tristan must have wept to them, telling them of the humiliation she had suffered. The Tristan family, one of the empire's 5 great noble houses standing alongside the Blanc family. They could easily have written articles publicizing my background and the scandal of Madame Russell and spread them everywhere. Yet everything remained quiet. Freya's thoughts moved swiftly. Were they wary of something? Or did even such a small matter require permission? So this woman is that cold, heartless wife? The wicked lady who would not even let her husband go home because of work. Freya kept her posture graceful before them. Madame Russell, long time no see. Freya wore a composed smile. Hello, Auguste. Auguste stepped aside to guide her. The boss is waiting for you. This way, please. He reached out and pushed open a door. Auguste announced, "Boss, Madam has arrived." Max looked up from his documents, confusion in his eyes. "Didn't you say you want to learn business?" Freya stood where she was. "Yes, I did say that, but why?" Auguste cleared his throat. "Madam Russell, your attire does not seem suitable for work. Next time, it would be best to dress more simply and wear proper shoes." Freya looked a little embarrassed. "Oh, is that so? Since it's my first day, I may have tried too hard. I'm sorry." And Auguste continued, "It is fine when the two of you are alone, but in front of others, it will be best to address him formally as boss." Freya nodded. "I'll like you do, Auguste." "All right." Max studied her suspiciously. "What kind of trick is this now?" The last time she came, she was dressed all in black. Today she looked as if she were headed to a social engagement. If Max's first misfortune was meeting Freya Blanc and walking toward ruin, and his second misfortune was inheriting his father's fraudulent business, then his final misfortune was that red line on the map. Freya's fingers lightly brushed the edge of her skirt. "What is that?" Auguste turned to Freya. "What do you think it is?" Freya touched her chin with a fingertip. "At first glance, it looks like a road. Are you marking a route?" Auguste's expression shifted slightly. "You could say that. It seems you're not entirely ignorant." Max lowered his gaze. "Like that red line, we're going to lay tracks. The Saint-Germain Railway Project. A project destined to fail. Because of it, Max would lose everything. His standing as a businessman, the reputation of a hero's descendant. He would even sell off the Russell family steelworks. In a future without my interference, the simplest way to avoid that misfortune is to make Max abandon the project himself. That is the surest way, and also the most difficult. With my power alone, I cannot make him give up. Imperial approval and steel production are not the real problem. The true reason. Max cannot abandon this project." Freya finally spoke. "A railway?" Max smiled faintly. "Yes, we are planning to build the first passenger railway. I know how much passion you have poured into it, and I know what you hope to achieve through this project." Freya gazed at Max. "You did not begin it because of your father, did you?" Max lowered his eyes. He said nothing. Max's father, Benoit Russell, was a swindler. Unlike his grandfather, a revolutionary hero, he was cunning and despicable. Before the police could catch him, he abandoned his wife and child and fled. The charge was canal investment fraud. The scandal broke half a year before Freya's wedding. The Russell family was on the brink, and at the same time, Max himself faced the risk of imprisonment over the debts. At that moment of despair, Freya Blanc proposed marriage to Max Russell. No, it was more than that. She promised she could revive the doomed canal project. He did not know that her father, Duke Blanc, had already offered the same terms. I cannot remember Max's expression at the time. 17-year-old Freya was blinded by a fairy tale love, so she could not understand the misfortune 20-year-old Max was facing. No, she could not even be bothered to understand. She had once been certain that she would spend eternal happiness with her precious first love. Freya's eyes hardened. "So, this time I must." The door flew open. A black-haired man stepped in. "Max, there's something urgent we need to discuss." Max turned at the sound. Freya lifted her eyes. Finally, he has come. She covered her mouth with her gloved hand. Good heavens, Marquis Tristan. The Marquis's gaze was sharp as a saw as it fixed on Freya. This was a reunion after a long separation. A complicated light flickered in Freya's eyes. Mukshrushal, Marquis Tristan, the Empire's acknowledged right and left arms. But unlike the noble-born Max, Tristan, born a commoner, was even more untouchable. Freya covered her lips with one hand. "To me, Marquis Tristan is only someone I must kill. Nothing more." Marquis Tristan smiled slightly. "Madam Russell, Marquis Tristan, I never imagined we would meet again in such a way." Freya turned to Max. "Max, I wish you had told me sooner that the Marquis was working with you." Max looked at Freya coldly. "Why would I tell you?" Freya touched her cheek, looking awkward. "Because since the Tristan family proposed to me, this is the first time we have seen each other. It is rather awkward to meet here." They had proposed to her, to Freya, who had effectively been promised elsewhere since she was 8. Freya pressed a hand to her cheek. "Father warned me not to bring up such unpleasant matters. My apologies, Marquis. I hope I have not made you uncomfortable." Marquis Tristan replied, "It's all right, Madam Russell. That was a long time ago." "Yes, a long time ago. Half a year before the wedding. 6 years ago. Max, wasn't that exactly when your father's scandal came to light?" Auguste stiffened, shock on his face. The atmosphere in the study turned icy in an instant. "Madam Russell, you have not yet toured the company, have you? I'll show you around." "This way, madam." Freya answered calmly. "Very well." The heavy door slowly swung shut. So, you really did propose to the Blanc family. That was my father's decision. Max's gaze remained calm. It is all in the past. That proposal could have led to a complete break between the two families. In my view, that would have been a good thing. Besides, we have already signed the divorce agreement. There is no need to dwell on old matters. But Max's expression darkened. Then why did this unpleasant feeling remain? More importantly, now is not the time to waste attention on something so minor. His fingers tapped lightly on the desk. At the upcoming senators' meeting, amendments to the railway bill will be submitted. Marquis Tristan's gaze sharpened, and by coincidence, two of them are aimed directly at us. Auguste's voice came from outside. What are you thinking? Freya stood in the middle of the hall. About what? Auguste stepped closer. Don't play dumb. I know you did it on purpose. His eyes were sharp. Why deliberately bring up the matter of Marquis Tristan? Are you trying to damage the working relationship between the Marquis and Max? Freya met his gaze. Delaport, if I admit that was my intention, will you throw me out of the office at once? Auguste's face darkened, and he clenched his jaw. How could I? The terms were cold and explicit. As long as the agreement existed, Max could not exclude his wife from the business. That document was her shield. Whatever her motives, she was a legitimate business partner. Auguste suddenly understood. So that is what this was for. From the start, all of you have been mistaken. Auguste leaned in. What do you mean by that? Freya's thoughts raced. The reason they had joined hands with the Tristan family was obvious enough. Once that article condemning me was published last year, the Tristan and Blanc families had already broken apart. The moderates dared to offend the only daughter of the hardliners, but they only knew half the truth. Freya turned to face Auguste. If you wanted to avoid my father, you should have drawn the Delaport family to your side. Auguste's expression darkened. His voice turned icy. If you do not understand, do not speak nonsense. Think carefully about what it meant for Delaport to propose to the Blanc family. Freya had already turned away. He called after her. Where are you going now? Without looking back, Freya answered, back to the president's office. I am very interested in what Marquis Tristan came to propose. Auguste stood frozen. After what had just happened, Freya suddenly turned around. Delaport, I did not come here for sightseeing. He fell silent at once. Freya's eyes held a trace of scorn. Is listening to an important discussion really worth less than idle gossip about Tristan having once proposed to Blanc? Auguste's eyes darkened. These noble women really are the worst creatures. The door opened. Please continue your discussion. I'll sit right here. Silence filled the room. Max looked at Marquis Tristan. Go on. Marquis Tristan gathered his thoughts. We expected the Canal faction to lobby, but this is more threatening than anticipated. One amendment would cap freight railway charges at 1.5 cents. The other would fix passenger fares at 50 cents. Freya listened quietly. Then the one we absolutely must stop is the 1.5 cent freight clause. That is my thinking as well. Freya's gaze sharpened. No, that is wrong. Time repeats itself again and again. Tiny changes can stir up enormous waves. But some things are destined not to change. This bill is one of them. Its passage cannot be stopped. Marquis Tristan spoke. I will go meet the senators who may oppose it and secure the moderate support before the vote. Max replied, I'm counting on you. We will do everything we can as well. Marquis Tristan placed a hand on Max's shoulder. Do not push yourself too hard. Your name must be handled with care. He turned to Freya. Madam Russell, until we meet again. Next time, I hope it will be in more suitable circumstances. The Marquis gave a faint smile and left. Freya watched him go. Where would the Marquis go now? To win opposing votes? Or to report that the Duke's troublesome daughter was making trouble again? But one thing was certain. Since he had seen me here, the letter summoning me would arrive within days. Everything is under control. Now it is my turn. Can we really leave the matter of securing opposition votes entirely to the Marquis? Max replied expressionlessly. If I appear personally, it will only provoke backlash. The grandson of a hero, the son of a swindler. He is always walking a tightrope. As a businessman, every step Max takes must be careful. Freya asked meaningfully. Why leave the lobbying only to Marquis Tristan? We still have Delaport on our side. Auguste gave a violent start and shut his eyes. Madam, my relationship with my father is worse than that of mortal enemies. Have you heard the word estranged? How could the Delaport family possibly help us? Freya turned. Then I will go see them myself. Madam Russell. Max gave her a suspicious look. And what exactly could you do there? Freya did not retreat. As a business partner, I will meet Mr. Delaport and ask him to win opposition votes. Max stared at her. That confidence of yours is unbelievable. Freya's voice rang out. Since you are not even willing to go, what does it matter if I go in your place? If I succeed, all the better. And even if I am refused, we lose nothing. Max felt irritated. No, but why Delaport of all people? He pressed a hand to his forehead. As Auguste said, our relationship with the Delaport family is terrible. We would only provoke them for no reason. Freya smiled confidently. Do not worry. If I go, it will look like nothing more than the whim of a crazed duchess. Who would imagine Max had entrusted the key to his wife? Auguste's mouth twisted. Annoyingly precise. Ridiculous, yet accurate. What miracle cure did she swallow? Freya continued. Besides, the Delaport family is the best choice. I have already decided on the place for the meeting. Max asked, where? A spark flashed in Freya's eyes. The racing club. Auguste and Max both stiffened at once. How do you know that? She even knew which club his father frequented. Did this woman investigate not only Max's women, but me and my family as well? Freya said calmly. Mathilde once mentioned that Mr. Delaport failed to return home for a week because of the club, while his wife waited at the gate in vain. Auguste's face reddened. I understand. Max raised the crucial point. But women are prohibited from entering. Freya smiled faintly. That rule only applies to ordinary women. I am Blanc. A sneer curled at Auguste's lips. She made no effort to hide that privilege she had been born with. Very well, if you say so. Freya turned to Max. If you're truly worried, you can come with me. Max answered. Tell me the date. I will adjust my schedule. Very well. Then I will be leaving now. Didn't you say you want to learn business? Freya tilted her head. Wasn't what we just did a business lesson? Max and Auguste looked at one another. Their faces wore the same bewilderment. That could be called a lesson. In any case, you do not want to leave work with me. Freya looked at him quietly. That is why I wanted you to leave first. Did I do something wrong? Max looked away. You are right. A flicker of understanding crossed Freya's eyes. I knew it. Her voice echoed through the room. Then, Max, Auguste Delaport. This unwelcome guest will take her leave. The door shut softly. Max and Auguste remained where they were. Was that really the Freya Blanc I knew? The woman who used to shrink back whenever her husband grew cold? That Freya Blanc no longer existed. Max turned to Auguste. Is Freya in contact with the Duke? Auguste answered, not as far as I know. Ever since that article last winter, the Duke has acted as though she does not exist. In a sense, that makes some kind of sense. Auguste grew thoughtful. But what she said earlier bothers me. Max asked, what did she say? Auguste recalled it. She told me to think carefully about what it meant to propose to the Blanc family. He suddenly paused, his gaze sharpening. That woman had just clearly said, if you wanted to avoid my father. What does that mean? She also said, you should have drawn the Delaport family to your side. Auguste's expression changed abruptly. He turned to Max. You did not tell her about the Duke, did you? No, impossible. You would never do that. You would never tell that princess such a thing. Then was it the Duke himself? Hard to say. The only people who know the inside story between you and the Duke are you, me, and your father, Benoit Russell. Would he keep the secret this long, only to tell his daughter now? Freya Russell is a woman obsessed with Max. If she knew the truth, she would inevitably clash with the Duke. There would be no benefit in telling her. Max turned toward the map. Forget that for now. Investigate that proposal, Auguste answered. It was carried out in secret and ended without result. It will be difficult to investigate, but I will look into it. And Auguste looked worried. If something really does come of it, that itself will be a problem. Won't it? Max lowered his eyes and said nothing. I once believed I understood Freya better than she understood herself. Marquis Tristan is already deeply entangled in this game. If his secret connection to the Duke is exposed, endless trouble will follow. Auguste broke the silence. Still, that is better than being caught completely off guard. Max agreed softly. That's true. Auguste changed his tone. Max, to be honest, the most suspicious one so far is still your wife. Is she really the woman I knew? But now, each time he saw her, the same question returned. Max's eyes darkened. Freya, what exactly are you thinking? Freya held an envelope between her fingers. The letter said, I hope to speak with you again in person. Freya's expression was calm. Father, by my count, we have not seen each other for half a year. Yet the letter sent to your daughter contains only a single line. Lorenzo, take this letter to the messenger who is waiting. Lorenzo stood before Freya. Yes, madam. The old mistress is planning to take you to her salon. A suppressed glint flashed in Freya's eyes. Mathilde had driven her into a corner. The servants, whether willingly or under coercion, had also taken part. The butler had been hired by Mathilde, but he had never openly favored her. He had never helped me either. So why now, all of a sudden? Freya turned her face slightly, her gaze sharp. Did Mathilde tell you to pass that message on to me? Lorenzo's tone remained steady. No, this is my own judgment. Freya fell silent for a moment. When is the salon being held? Lorenzo answered, the second Saturday of June. I once spread word that someone had leaked information from the estate to Mathilde. I did not expect such a person to truly appear. Freya's eyes sharpened. Do you really understand who the true master of this estate is? Are you sure this is wise? Lorenzo's expression did not change. You were always the lady of this estate. I am only saying this for the employer's convenience. Freya turned her face aside. So you intend to treat Mathilde as the mistress? Lorenzo continued. The old mistress has ordered all servants replaced because she cannot discover who leaked information to you. I, too, may be dismissed at any time. I am merely doing what I can. The corner of Freya's lips lifted. That is far better than someone who shakes hands to my face and stabs me in the back. I cannot guarantee you will not be dismissed, but if you listen to me, I can give you a letter of recommendation from the Blanc family and suitable compensation. Lorenzo bowed slightly. Please command me as you wish. So long as it is within my power, I will do my utmost to satisfy you. Freya rested her chin on one hand. Then may I make my request now? Bring me the guest list for Lady Mathilde Salon. Lorenzo's pupils contracted slightly. It sounded like a simple request, but the use of that list would immediately expose that I had leaked it. Even so, I could not refuse. If I might be dismissed anyway, better to secure the letter of recommendation. Such shrewdness. Why only now? Freya folded her hands, utterly at ease, a faint smile on her lips. Lorenzo looked at her, and a small smile appeared on his face as well. If Madame had been like this from the beginning, no. If you had stepped forward just a little sooner, I would have followed you without hesitation. Freya sat alone. Sunlight streamed through the curtains and fell over her. She let out a quiet breath. Her gaze sank inward. This is the first time. I have never resisted Mathilde before. Freya looked at the letter on the table. Now I must think about Father, Mr. Delaporte, Mathilde Salon. And before my eyes rose a magnificent palace. The royal ball in the last week of June. It will be my first public appearance since what happened last year. I will inevitably become a laughingstock. In that case, I may as well become the most eye-catching one of all. Purnell, thank you for agreeing to meet so quickly. This sort of thing is best handled sooner rather than later. Please call me Ines. Very well, Ines. The same goes for me. I would never refuse. Purnell turned to the red-haired man beside her. Freya, let me introduce him. This is my business partner, Paul Charlotte. Paul bowed slightly. It is an honor to meet you, Madame Russell. Purnell touched Paul's arm lightly. Paul, Freya extended her hand. I'm pleased to meet you. Mr. Charlotte, I heard Lady Purnell intends to buy you an entry pass to court. Is that true? Purnell looked at Paul. He was once the apprentice of a tailor I worked with. His skill is extraordinary, but he knows nothing of noble society. Freya nodded. Indeed, under the present circumstances, it will be difficult. Paul gave a confident smile. Just wait and see. Soon people will be lining up to wear clothes I made. The corner of Freya's mouth curved. He truly had reason for that confidence. In just 1 year, every noblewoman in the country would be wearing gowns made by this man, or copying the styles he designed. Yet Freya looked straight at Paul. If I open the road to the court for you, what do you plan to do next? Purnell smiled faintly. To be honest, the court is not my final goal. I intend to use gowns designed by Paul to secure a supply contract with the court, and through that establish the very concept of a haute couture designer. In the old days, a tailor was simply a craftsman who perfectly fulfilled a customer's wishes. But an haute couture designer returns the power of choice to the designer. Customers choose only from completed works. It is a path on which one cannot survive without exceptional talent. Paul possesses that talent. Today, I must persuade him. Freya spoke. In fact, I have brought 2 new proposals. They are entirely optional. Even if you refuse, our relationship will not change. A flicker of surprise passed through Purnell's eyes. New proposals? Freya's gaze burned. The first is that I would like Mr. Charlotte's very first gown to be made for me. I intend to wear it to the court ball at Versailles. Purnell laughed. Of course, that would be no problem. Paul happens to have a few samples. You may choose any of them. Paul flatly refused. I do not like that. If it is to be my first gown, then it should be done properly, starting with the fabric. I will choose it myself. Everything must begin from scratch. Purnell's smile faded. I understand. Then what is the second proposal? A confident smile spread over Freya's lips. The second proposal is this. Before you sign with the court, I want you to consider signing with me first. Paul stiffened, and Purnell looked stunned. Paul turned his head. Pardon me, is this some noblewoman's joke? Or should I leave right now? Purnell grabbed Freya's arm. Freya, are you trying to go back on your word? Freya smiled with perfect confidence. Designing clothes for the highest-ranking lady in the Empire would surely bring wealth and fame. But just as roses have thorns, beautiful things often hide traps. Paul Charlotte was the most talented tailor, and also the most unfortunate one. Gowns designed by Paul would sweep through the Empire, yet no one would know it. Paul would not even have shop in his own name. His name would be erased completely, replaced by praise for the Empress's exquisite taste in fashion. The Empire's brightest jewel. A newspaper spread open, its headline unmistakable. The unlucky tailor once praised by the Empire. Paul, it seemed, could not bear such a fate. Not long after Paul entered the palace, Ines also abruptly ended her business and quietly disappeared. Extraordinary talent can sometimes be a curse, especially for those who have no power to protect it. Freya gazed at him. But how am I to persuade him to believe in a future that has not yet happened? Paul lost patience. Stop speaking in circles. What exactly are you trying to say? Do not think I am some gullible commoner. No matter what, I'm going to make the Empress wear my gown. He was tightly bound by pride and confidence. To him, having his design stolen would be no different from having his life taken. Freya met his eyes. That will happen. Even the Empress will come to your shop. But if you sign with me first, I will make all of that happen in the name of Blanc. Paul stared in disbelief. So, you want me to give up the court and choose you? Are you serious? Paul let out a cold laugh. Madam Russell, I may not understand noble society, but I have heard many rumors, especially about you. On what basis do you claim that making clothes for you is better than making them for the Empress? Or was this your intention from the start? Charlotte, both of these proposals are optional. Fine, then I will answer you right now. You said even if I refused, our relationship would not change. If you do not want it, then just say no. Then I will answer you now. Purnell pressed a hand to his arm. Paul, please calm down first. She turned to Freya. Freya, I want to know what I stand to gain by accepting this proposal. I will wear gowns you design at every formal occasion. You will become this family's first exclusive haute couture designer. As Charlotte's patron, I plan to open a boutique for you. To abandon a contract with the court for this may seem unreasonable. Truly, I can open the road to the court, but even I cannot interfere in their contracts. The world you wish to enter is ruled by the greediest family in the Empire. They desire many things, and they have the power to take them. If all you want is to dress the highest-ranking woman in the Empire, you do not need to accept my proposal. But if you want to become the first haute couture designer and open the Empire's first boutique bearing your own name, then I promise you, I am the best choice. Paul muttered to himself, this is worse than blackmail. Was she being too negative about the royal family? Purnell said to Freya, Madam Russell, please give me some time to consider. Pressing too hard would not necessarily be wise. Freya lowered her eyelids and smiled gently. Then please think it over and let me know before the gown is finished. Freya calculated inwardly. Depending on your decision, my strategy for the court ball will also change. How could she be so certain the Empress would like it? The Empress had not even seen my gown. Of course she had. Freya continued in a lowered voice, as if wary even of the walls having ears. And no matter what decision you make, your dress will be the most beautiful one at the court ball. Paul gave a faintly confident smile. There's no need to state the obvious. The jingling of bells drifted in from the street as a carriage slowly rolled away. Paul turned to Purnell. What do you think? His words sounded like he meant to have us swallowed alive in the Imperial Palace. If it was only meant as a threat, it was extremely effective. Purnell stroked her chin. I think I've been too complacent. Her eyes sharpened. I was only thinking about making the deal. I didn't think enough about the risk of having everything taken from us. It was the possibility of success, but also the unknown that would come after. More precisely, the risk of having the fruit of their labor extorted from them. Public opinion was a frightening thing. If the scales tipped even slightly, they could lose everything. Let's start over, Purnell said, her gaze resolute. We have to give up dressing the Empress. I have 1 month. I need to gather information on the royal family. A splendid door was pushed open. There were 2 letters. One was a reply from her father, arranging a meeting at the jockey club. The other, he unfolded it, was the list of salon attendees the butler had found. The corner of his mouth curled, and a calculating light flickered in his eyes. Freya gave a start. Mira, your name is on the list too. I need to stop by the bank. Sunlight poured through the high windows, filling the quiet library. A voice broke the silence. Could you help me find a book? What book is it? Freya narrowed her eyes. The Black Cat. She hadn't expected to see him again. He took a step forward, his hem swaying lightly, and the librarian rose from behind the desk. This way, please. Footsteps creaked on the wooden stairs as the librarian led Freya upstairs. He turned to face her. "What brings you here today? I want you to investigate someone. It seems your old habits haven't changed." Freya's order allowed no objection. "I need the full record of this person's movements over the past 6 months." 6 months? That will take at least 10 days. Freya's tone admitted no discussion. "You must have it by the Saturday after next, no matter what. And this time, don't tell my father either." The man hurriedly nodded. "Why, yes, of course. I'll do as you ask." Freya's heels clicked softly against the floor. When she was 21, Madame Rossignol's scandal had exploded, and interviews had surfaced one after another. That was when she had gained her freedom. She had once suspected that man had been watching and following her. Max had investigated those women too, and had passed information about her to the newspapers. But the truth proved that impossible. Joseph, the owner of the salvage shop, appeared to run a business on the verge of collapse. But in truth, he was the head of the intelligence organization her father had founded, a shadow institution operating with the emperor's tacit approval. Joseph had never betrayed her information. He had only leaked it under orders. "So this time as well, please act according to my father's orders." Joseph lowered his eyes to the newspaper, his expression unchanged. If they intended to use the information she gave them to control her, then this time she would turn it around and control them instead. A sharp glint flashed in Freya's eyes, confidence curving at her lips. The Rhodes Club, a sacred ground reserved for men, the most important social stage of all. And among its various establishments, the Jockey Club stood at the pinnacle. Membership itself was an honor, and the pride it inspired soared to the heavens. Inside the club, voices swelled in every direction. Well-dressed gentlemen stood in small groups, conversing in low tones. The air was thick with the smell of cigars and confidence. "Who do you think will win the next race?" "Nonsense. This time there's no way." The gentleman froze. "What?" The man in the top hat looked puzzled as well. "HM? What is it?" His expression stiffened instantly, his eyes widening in shock. Whispering began to spread. Men had thrown fortunes away to become members, and in the finest club in all Lutz, this oasis reserved only for men, all eyes now turned in one direction. The click of high heels rang across the floor. A silver-haired gentleman stared. "What is this? What idiot brought a woman in here? If you don't know the rules, get out of this sacred club." Freya, however, remained perfectly calm, wearing a dreamlike dress. One man whipped around. "Wait," the man beside him murmured. "Isn't that Max, Duke Blank's son-in-law?" Whispers rose one after another. Everyone knew that he and the only daughter of House Blanc had long been estranged, especially after last year's kidnapping case. Freya did her best not to react. His silence absorbed every word around them. "Russell brought a woman, one who isn't even a club member. Isn't that practically provoking Duke Blanc, one of the founding members? Who is that woman, anyway?" One man narrowed his eyes. "But she looks a bit like the Duke's daughter." His companion scoffed. "Impossible. The Duke's daughter we know is definitely not, unless he deliberately brought a woman like that. To bring someone who resembles the Duke's daughter, yet has the exact opposite kind of presence. He must be here to insult the Duke. Isn't that Duke Blanc, whether it's him or not, if he witnesses his son-in-law openly cheating?" "Freya, you came." "That woman is Freya?" The hall buzzed with noise. "Max," everyone staring. "Smile," Freya said, linking her arm through his. "We're not here to declare war." Max turned his face slightly. "True, but it certainly feels like it." From within the crowd, one gaze locked onto Freya. Another settled on Max. Blanc stepped forward. "Freya, you came." Freya leaned her head against Blanc's shoulder. "Father." Blanc smiled, pleased. "So you came too." "Max." Max gave a slight bow. "Your Grace. It has been a long time." "What a shameless hypocrite." Blanc suggested. "Let's not stand here. Shall we go upstairs?" The Jockey Club was men's holy ground, and women were strictly forbidden. But at this moment, no one dared complain, because Duke Blanc was one of its founders, and because, aside from the royal family, the Duke held the highest power in the empire. And I was destined to make full use of that power before being thoroughly cast aside by it. Blanc sat on the sofa. "I heard you went to a salon exhibition recently." Freya settled against another sofa. "Yes, I even bought a painting." Blanc smiled. "You seem to be doing well. That puts me at ease." Of course. Lately I've also been visiting Max's office often." Blanc looked somewhat surprised. "I never would have thought it. What do you go there for?" Freya beamed. "What else would I do? I simply go to watch my husband work." Max lowered his eyes to the side, his expression conflicted. "How strange. When the newspapers have been flooded with reports about Freya, The Duke had done absolutely nothing. Duke Blanc had finally abandoned his mad daughter. People believed that and drove Freya into a corner, yet the Duke still remained silent. And now they were speaking as if those 6 months of silence had never happened at all, chatting lightly and with ease. Like opponents probing for weaknesses, they hid their emotions behind smiles and traded veiled barbs. I thought leaving them alone together might make things easier, but instead it only made the confusion worse. Freya suddenly spoke. "Oh, I nearly forgot. I want to attend the royal ball this year. I can count on you to get me an invitation. Can I, father?" The royal family did not send invitations to commoners, so no matter how hard they tried, people like them could never be invited. But that fact meant nothing to those two. Freya could become Duke Blank's daughter again whenever she wished. Blanc smiled. "The royal ball? So you want to return to society?" Freya sat up straight. "I'm already 22. I can't remain a child forever." Blank's gaze moved between the two of them. "It's good that you want to go, but perhaps next year would be more appropriate." Freya's smile did not fade. "It doesn't have to be this year. Father, one accidental opportunity completely overturned everything I had once believed. I had been House Blank's only daughter, a romantic who had grown used to silence, pushed into the center of society, a woman rumored never to have consummated her marriage. Yet there were also rumors that the princess's heart belonged elsewhere, to a man better suited to her than her husband. Would people allow a woman to leave her husband for true love? No, I had never seen a woman permitted to pursue her own will, not even a member of the royal family. The only exception was if another man wanted her. Because I was a pure virgin, Freya folded her hands together. Even if we are destined to have no future, I'll make everyone believe otherwise. We'll carve ourselves into their memories. They'll remember that we once stood together like a married couple. Freya smiled with confidence. "I prefer this year. Father." The Duke's eyes darkened. Blanc gave a short laugh. "If that is truly your wish, then so be it. I'll have the invitation sent to the Russell residence. Now, please excuse us for a moment. I have something to discuss with Max." The door closed softly. Blanc offered him a cigar. "One." Max turned slightly away. "No, thank you." Blanc brought the cigar to his lips. "You and Freya seem quite close. You haven't forgotten our agreement, have you?" Mux's jaw tightened. "The promise." The Duke, just like a father, was the embodiment of human shamelessness. What kind of father treated his daughter's marriage like a business transaction? And yet accepting it had not improved matters either. I was trash as well. Keep the princess pure, just as promised. Condition 1. Maintain the marriage until the princess grows tired of it. Condition 2. Do not consummate the marriage. Those had been the terms for inheriting the steelworks on the verge of bankruptcy. 5 years earlier, that company had been embroiled in fraud accusations. If I had refused, I would have ended up in prison myself. Max lowered his head. I had only one path left to end this immoral deal. Blanc asked, "Why does she go to your office?" "There's no need to spread those childish rumors." Max answered calmly, "I'm rarely home, so she came to find me herself." Blanc looked softly. "After everything that's happened, that child still likes you." Max remained expressionless. Was that why? Was today not actually their first meeting? That earlier, subtle unease. It had felt as if the two of them were testing each other. Blank's tone turned cold. "I want her returned unharmed. So keep your promise." Until the very end, he was as steady as ever. The Duke saw me as an unsightly toy. He was certain the end was coming, or perhaps he already knew I had made the first move. The golden hall gleamed with grandeur as gentlemen conversed. A hand settled lightly on Delaporte's shoulder. Delaport turned around. His expression shifted. "Lady Russell, this is my first time at the Jockey Club. If it isn't too much trouble, could you show me around, Mr. Delaporte?" The Empire's most distinguished families gathered here, the center of wealth and power. Freya smiled at him. "Mr. Delaporte, owner of Lutz Bank and former senator, correct?" Delaporte's expression did not change. "Lady Russell, it is an honor that you know who I am." Freya smiled back. "You're too modest. Nearly half of Lutz's capital flows through your bank. I once opened an account there myself." Delaporte gave a small laugh. "Is that so?" Freya's expression grew earnest. "Mr. Delaporte, I have something to tell you, but I have no one to turn to." Before the founding members of the club stood that infamous heiress, rumored to be at odds with her father. Who would dare challenge the owner of Lutz Bank? Didn't Delaporte notice the predatory eyes behind those smiling faces? A A trace of worry entered Freya's voice. My husband has been troubled lately, so I looked into things myself. I heard the kingdom's laws are about to change. She was openly revealing that she had begun meddling in her husband's affairs. What was she thinking? Delaport stiffened, hand to his chest. Madam, this is not an appropriate topic. Out of respect for Duke Blanc, I'm still treating you courteously. But the Delaport family is also one of the great houses. There is no need for us to be so polite to a wild mare. Freya touched her lips, feigning surprise. Oh dear, did I say something improper? You were simply the first person I thought of, sir. After all, your eldest son is my husband's. Delaporte's voice sank. Madam, Delaporte's gaze sharpened like a blade. The surrounding murmur grew louder. Delaporte let out a short sigh. What exactly are you trying to ask? Freya met his eyes. They say rail transport pays only 1.5 centimes per ton, while sea freight earns 4 centimes. Rail seems to lose badly. Delaporte narrowed his eyes with open disdain. Who here wouldn't know that? No one in this building was ignorant of it. The bill had been designed that way. Clearly, the only exception was the woman standing before him. Freya clasped her hands at her chest, looking sincere. I may not understand much, but I want to do something for my husband. Could you help me, sir? A cold smile tugged at Delaporte's lips. No matter how one heard it, this was lobbying for the repeal of the amendment, just in an embarrassingly clumsy way. She could dig a trap so calmly while pretending to be entirely innocent. I would never pity someone like her. Rejected by her father, unloved by her husband, the only daughter of the leader of the royalist faction, and yet looked down upon by the public. Delaporte lifted his gaze. Lady Russell, if you need help, wouldn't your father be more suitable? Or are you asking me to do something you cannot even say to him? Freya covered her lips with one hand, pretending surprise. Ah, you're right. She lowered her eyes. I was thoughtless. Delaporte spoke sternly. Such matters are best left to men. If you mention this elsewhere, you'll only embarrass yourself. Please go back. Guests in the distance whispered among themselves. Honestly, women, this was the greatest leniency he could offer. Freya turned away. The innocent panic on her face vanished, replaced by a calculating smile. Did something happen? It's nothing serious. It just didn't go very well. Max wiped his hand lightly. I see. That can't be helped. Freya's voice was calm, so I plan to meet him again later. Mux frowned. Why? Freya looked out the window. Yes, why indeed? She had deliberately played the part of an ignorant young wife, only to be publicly rebuffed by Delaporte in front of his creditors and shareholders, all to plant a single seed of unrest. Freya turned back, a faint smile on her face. Besides, my father was there. It might have been awkward. Max looked at her. Didn't you say you wanted to come here first? If you thought it would be awkward, then why go all the way there at all? What were you thinking, Freya? Freya did not answer. What did you and Duke Blanc talk about? Is this because the Duke is interfering in my affairs? Freya allowed a soft sigh. Just when everything had been progressing smoothly, I missed the most important part. I knew you wouldn't trust me easily. The road ahead is long, and now we're facing this on top of everything else. Every time, he will suspect my intentions. Perhaps one day, my daughter will no longer have to suffer like this. So this conversation must end here. Just this once. Mux Ruschel, listen carefully. I'll answer only this once. Freya focused on him completely. Remember what I'm saying now. If you doubt me again, think back to today. Everything I did today and everything I will do in the future is for you. Only for you. Max Russell, Freya lowered her gaze. Distrust, I understand. It's hard to believe, considering what Blanc means to you, isn't it? You told me that if I trusted you, you'd sign 100 contracts. But doubt will always rise up like it did today. Even so, this is the only thing I can say. Her voice turned earnest. So please trust me anyway. I'll take you away from here, just as you once did for me. Now it's my turn, Max. Do you know how happy I was that day when I held your hand? When you find it impossible to believe, remember us back then. Freya smiled with quiet confidence. Everything I do is to return that happiness to you. In truth, I've made only one promise, just as my father once did for me. This time I'm going to free him from this foolish life. Her gaze hardened once more. So Max, just this once, believe me. Everything was exactly as my father said. There was no one left beside Max, only his wife. I lied, and it would hurt him, but in the end he would understand my sincerity. In this world, only I could accept him. Your divorced husband says he loves another woman. Even if it was a voice I had destroyed with my own hands, I would forget everything and begin again. I hadn't given up. In the end, I protected the love of my life, or so I believed. Freya Blanc, are you satisfied now? Look at what your love has done to me. Freya jolted awake. A tear slid from the corner of her eye. The doctor held her chart and asked calmly, how do you feel? Freya's eyes were hollow, as if she had awakened from a nightmare, so vivid it felt real. But what she saw was a reality even crueler than a nightmare. The doctor lowered his eyes. No matter how much one tries to erase them, memories do not disappear easily. We call it extracting memories. From a trivial to the profound, they are stored in different compartments. What we call forgetting is merely forgetting where a memory has been filed. Emotion is the most important factor in recalling that location. The doctor explained gently. Through hypnosis, we dilute your emotions. The stronger the emotion, the longer the treatment takes, until it feels like someone else's story. Then it disappears, like forgetting what you ate a week ago. Freya held a handkerchief. Her gaze lowered. Is this really what you want? Freya looked up, her eyes resolute. The white-haired doctor leaned forward. Erasing all memories of your husband will leave an enormous void. There has never been a precedent for this. We cannot predict the side effects. Even knowing the risks, are you certain you want them erased? Freya gripped the handkerchief tightly in both hands. Doctor, please don't worry. A calm smile spread across her face. I understand perfectly well what consequences and risks my actions carry. Finding Dr. Sigmund has been my greatest stroke of luck. Freya looked straight at him. If I told you I had already erased a memory once before, would you believe me? The white-haired doctor's pupils widened. His lips parted, and he was left utterly speechless. The spring of my 22nd year was endless suffering. It was my prison. I shut myself in my room, enduring the world's condemnation and mockery, crying all day. The insomnia and hysteria only worsened. On the days Max came home, I clung to him with every last shred of my strength. Some instinct unfinished within me sensed it, that the day my husband would abandon me was not far away. 2 weeks before the divorce reached me, time became the countdown to a guillotine. My sanity hovered at the edge of collapse, like a prisoner awaiting execution. The first 2 weeks of May are blank in my memory. I remember nothing. That stretch of time, when all I could think about was Max Russell, I erased with my own hands. To confirm whether hypnosis would work as I wished, and to predict how much damage such a blank space in my memory would cause, Freya spoke calmly. Fortunately, they said I was very easy to hypnotize. Who told you that? Freya did not answer. A faint smile touched her lips as she looked at him. The doctor's pupils abruptly contracted. A newspaper lay spread open, its headline clear. Notice of the Bitis Saint-Germain-en-Laye Railway Project. Auguste unfolded the newspaper, a smile lifting the corner of his mouth. The rail beginning is here. If the project succeeds, you'll be the first to lay passenger rail. No, not just that. We'll expand the lines so people can ride the railway we build from the far north all the way to the far south. Auguste suddenly remembered something. By the way, what exactly is Lady Russell planning to do? Max lowered his eyes. His face remained expressionless, but Freya's words surfaced in his mind. Max, just this once. Believe me, Max's expression did not change in the slightest. He had thought long ago that he was already tired of a wife's tears. Yet the Freya of that moment had seemed like a completely different person from the one he knew. Freya's hand had pressed down lightly, just as you once did for me. This time I'll hold your hand and lead you out. She said she would take me away. A flicker passed through Max's eyes. Auguste looked at him. She said she'd act for your sake. Auguste's gaze sharpened. Are you sure she isn't just trying to keep you by her side? Are you sure she hasn't joined hands with the Duke? Max's eyes lowered. Their conversation at the Jockey Club had indeed been strange. But I heard she plans to meet Mr. Delaporte again. For now, I'm letting her do as she pleases. My father is no ordinary man. Convincing him is impossible. You know that. In any case, even if she's rejected, we lose nothing. Auguste looked thoughtful. It seems, at least in this regard, your wife has done quite well. Max lifted his head. What do you mean? Rumors were spreading in the shadows. That Lady Russell had sought her father's help for her husband. That after negotiations failed, she had panicked and humiliated herself before the bank president. Max lowered his gaze. I accompanied Freya last Saturday to confirm her relationship with the Duke, but I had another purpose. If the Duke truly is interfering with the amendment, then this rumor can be used to create chaos. Auguste smiled and spread his hands. Your wife's reputation has taken another hit, but no matter how you look at it, it benefits us. The legislators are beginning to watch the Duke's every move. The merchants with something at stake are on edge too, wondering what effect the actions of his only daughter will have. Their attempt to obstruct the project is wavering. Mux's gaze deepened. That's good. Freya's performance exceeded expectations. It will be much easier now to persuade the legislators in Marquis Tristan's camp. Max lowered his eyes. It was clearly a good thing, but Auguste stared at him. Max, let me ask just in case. You don't still have feelings for your wife, do you? Max said nothing. In these circumstances, feelings had long since become irrelevant. Haven't we already come too far? The prince who once wanted to save the princess had become trash who used marriage as a transaction. And the princess waiting in the castle had become a madwoman who sent people to follow her husband. Max closed his eyes. At this point, nothing could be changed. Auguste tapped the document with his finger. Then that's reassuring. I heard your wife decided not to come to work this week. He picked up the file with a snort. She works for a full week and then takes another break? What does she think this is? If it weren't for the benefit to her father, why would she suddenly be interested now? If Freya were left alone when she inherited the title, she'd have to run the business herself. That's probably the reason. Auguste frowned. What are you talking about? Freya Blanc, left alone. He gave a contemptuous laugh. Impossible. She'll just go from Lady Russell to someone else's wife. Could it finally be Lady Blank's turn this time? Max's eyes sharpened. What do you mean? Auguste sounded certain. The Duke would never allow his only daughter to become a divorcee. He might even submit a new marriage application before the ink on the divorce papers is dry. Max's gaze turned instantly cold. Max gripped the file. Yes, that's true. Max lowered his eyes. Why had I naturally assumed that after Freya Blanc divorced, she would remain alone in Blanc Castle? No matter what Freya wanted, the Duke would never leave her on her own. Max's eyes went cold. Auguste looked at him. So then, that woman who's about to be divorced. What is she skipping work to do now? The newspaper turned another page. Freya's eyes moved over the printed lines. Max's project had finally taken its first step. In the end, business was a war of capital. Success or failure depended on investment. Freya lowered her eyes. Normally, Tristan would handle attracting investors, but I have no intention of letting it proceed that way. If I can get hold of Asher Deleport, I can keep Tristan in check. For that, I need to find a way to pull Lutz Bank into this. Freya tapped the newspaper lightly with her finger. For now, I need to wait for the right moment. Freya stared out the window. Her prey was at Longchamp Racecourse. This time, the next race would be held somewhere different from last time. Under no circumstances could anyone find out. I need to prepare carefully. A slight smile curved Freya's lips. If last time was a request, this time would be a threat. There was not a trace of warmth in her smile. From Mr. Delaporte's perspective, listening to me last time would have been the better choice. A crescent moon hung in the night sky. Freya stared at the painting on the wall. Is this your taste in art? Freya spun around. Max. Max stood in the doorway, expression cold. The husband I longed for more and more, only to feel him drift farther away. The man who had not set foot here in 5 years had now entered my bedroom for the second time. Freya lowered her eyes. So it was that simple. Max looked at the painting. That was the one that caught your attention at the exhibition, wasn't it? Why that one? Because I like it. Max pressed on. What's special about it? Max was making small talk with me of his own accord. Perhaps this was his way of trying to trust me. But I had no intention of telling him the painting's true meaning. Even if I did, he likely wouldn't believe me. Freya smiled faintly. You may not know this, but that cliff in the painting is... Max said the name first. Lover's Cliff. Freya's pupils shrank at once. You know Lover's Cliff? Max smiled as if it were obvious. I know the area around Blanc Castle better than you do. When I was 12, I entered the Imperial boarding school by the Duke's order. After that, I spent all my holidays at Blanc Castle, like a cuckoo clock, bound by time and place. It was the life of a living doll, existing only to please the young lady. Max's thoughts drifted to the cliff's edge. I heard that if lovers make a vow there, they can gain eternal love. If I cast away the name Blanc, and I cast away the name Russell, and suggested that we elope in secret together, what would Snow White say? Max and Freya, both wrapped in cloaks, ran along a woodland path. The two entered a small cabin. Max stood at the kitchen counter, and Freya stood beside him. She looked up at Max. Her smile was sweet. Max stared alone at the setting sun. Those dull days at boarding school, those days at Blanc Castle when he was utterly ignored, the only thing that made them bearable, aside from time spent with the young masters, was the time he spent on the cliff, imagining a future that would never come. You didn't come here just to look at the painting, did you? Freya looked up at him. Why did you come? Yes, why are you standing before me again? I used to dream day and night of escaping Blanc, and now I have returned as a son of Blanc. What? Today I announced the new venture. I know. Is that why you came? Max said, tomorrow we'll issue shares. Anyone interested can buy them. Freya's expression remained calm. I was planning to buy some. Max's eyes sharpened. You want to buy shares in our company? Was she practicing how to make herself look suspicious? Freya turned away. I'm an official business partner too. Besides, is there any investment more profitable than railways right now? Max said nothing. Did your father tell you to buy them? Did the Duke ever tell you how the Russell family's canal project was branded as fraud? A memory flashed through his mind. She had looked at Max with sincere intensity. So Max believed me, just this once. Max lowered his gaze. Do you know what trusting you means to me? He remembered Auguste's words. You don't still have feelings for your wife, do you? Max answered expressionlessly. Do as you like. Freya said softly, thank you. Max turned to leave. I'll go now. Yes. Thank you for coming all this way just to tell me, Max. A flicker of caution flashed in his eyes. Freya stared at him, her expression fragile, if only for a moment. Did you ever love me? Did I ever love Freya Blanc? It had been too fierce an obsession to call love. All I ever showed him was falsehood. If one day both of us could break free of our chains, perhaps then that might be our Freya. You said you'd take me away from here. Max turned his face slightly, emotion tangled in his blue eyes. I hope you succeed. He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing through the empty corridor. So, Mathilde called after Max. I want to talk. Do you have a moment? Max stopped. What is it this time? If it's about Freya, I don't want to hear it. Mathilde smiled faintly. That's not what I wanted to discuss. I heard from the butler that you've decided to host a salon on Saturday. Yes, Max said expressionlessly. I heard. Mathilde continued. I know you're busy, but if you could show your face, everyone would be delighted. Do they really know? Today the new venture had just been announced, and even on a day like this, they still cared only about themselves. A maid entered. Sir, madam, were you looking for madam? Max turned to the maid. Freya and I are finished talking. You may go in. Then he turned back to Mathilde. This isn't the place to talk. Let's go to your room, mother. Mathilde gave a small laugh. I was only worried you might be busy. If that's the case, then let's do that. Mathilde caught Max by the arm. This is the first salon being held in the name of Russell. As a host, you should at least greet the guests. Lately, every time you come home, you cling to Freya. Good. The maid will carry word that Max will attend. Then he won't be able to ignore it. Max stood in front of the door. Mother, I'm sorry. The company is very busy right now. Mathilde's eyes sharpened. You have time to see that girl, but not enough time to greet them? Max replied calmly. I came today for business, to discuss company matters with her. Mathilde asked disdainfully. What business could you possibly discuss with her? Fine, if you insist on saying that, then so be it. I won't disturb you. Go and rest. Muck smiled faintly. Mother, let me say this one last time. Please stop concerning yourself with Freya. What exactly do you mean by that? Mathilde demanded. Max's voice remained steady. As I told you before, I will handle matters concerning my wife myself. Mathilde's voice rose sharply. Again with this? When you're busy with your business, who do you think is the one taking care of that girl? Do you know how much effort I've spent looking after her? Just because I wanted her hospitalized for a while, you're treating me like I'm the villain? Max's face darkened. Mother, Mathilde waved a hand. Fine, even if you beg me later, I won't interfere anymore. As long as Freya attends, everything will be solved. There's no need to turn this into a fight. It wasn't only Freya who had changed. Max had changed too. Why? Mathilde sat on the sofa. Butler, have you noticed anything unusual about the two of them lately? The silver-haired butler stood to the side. I haven't noticed anything in particular. That's impossible. What exactly do you mean? Mathilde waved her hand. Forget it. Keep a close eye on them. If you discover anything at all, report it to me immediately. You may go. Mathilde fell into thought. Freya, you said you would take me away from here. I hope you succeed. Turning Max's words over in her mind, she knew the moment she heard them. It was a sign. A sign that their relationship had changed. If she could understand what Max meant, not only could she make Freya realize her place, she could trample her underfoot once again. A calculating gleam flashed in Mathilde's eyes. But take him away from here, to where? A soft knock came at the door. Mira stood at the entrance. Madam, the Duchess and the Master are outside right now. Mira called softly, Madam. To abandon one's partner and choose death in the place where eternal vows were made. What did that mean? I had thought Max chose that place by chance. But if he knew the story of that cliff, then he had deliberately chosen it as the place to die. What feelings did you carry with you when you went a lover's cliff? Were you trying to say farewell to me forever? In that place where others longed for eternal love, were you the only one longing for eternal separation? Mira, what should I do? A hint of bitterness flashed in Freya's eyes. I don't think I can even fulfill his final wish. Mira tried to comfort her. Madam, perhaps it's because you hung up such a gloomy painting that you're having these strange thoughts. I'm not entirely sure what you mean, but if someone chose to die in a place where eternal love is sworn, doesn't that mean they hope to meet that person again after death in some way? Even after death, Freya turned her face slightly, a look of realization flickering in her green eyes. That was true. Half a year after my husband died, I climbed that cliff again, only to go to his side, even if it could only be in that way. Back then, I should not have done that. If what Max truly wanted was eternal separation, then as long as this hell never ends, his wish will never come true. Tears slid down Freya's face. I am sorry. Because of me, you too have to keep repeating this hell. Congratulations, sir. What a magnificent race. Delaporte glanced aside, a confident smile rising at his lips. Thank you. You crossed the finish line by the tiniest margin. It was a truly spectacular moment. Delaporte chuckled. Just luck, that's all. I told you I saw it clearly. Is that so? Lady Russell is circling the president of Loot's Bank. Everyone secretly hopes to gain his favor, but he still seems to have some pride left, playing hard to get. I could have treated him more gently. Delaporte's gaze sharpened. Those self-satisfied nobles. He actually believed Duke Blanc had once again ignored his daughter. How foolish. The moment the princess stepped into the jockey club with perfect confidence, he should have noticed. The relationship between the duke and the princess had already changed. If he had truly possessed that kind of insight, he would never have said such things. A pair of leather boots stepped onto the path, moving forward steadily. Lady Russell really is pitiful. Once a precious flower, now treated worse than weeds by the roadside. Who would have imagined the white sail red flower affair would end like this? Delaporte's brow twitched. Can't they speak quietly? Those smug faces are a spectacle. That man who used to trail after Auguste Delaporte at school like a sewer rat now held his head high, apparently thinking himself a successful businessman. A group of nobles murmured among themselves. Come to think of it, a commoner like Russell graduating from the Imperial Military Academy. There were even rumors among us that the Duke sent him there deliberately, hoping he'd die. The Grand Imperial Military Academy had once served as a refuge for impoverished nobles. Now it was the cradle of rising stars in the military. And there, hanging by a thread, had been the bloodline of a deceased duchess. Delaporte's lips curved with contempt. How shallow. In an era when nobles and newly risen elites kept each other in check. He had revived his family business and even expanded into railways, yet there were still people bold enough to belittle him in public. Another noble turned to his companion. I heard the president of Loot's Bank is Asurian. Is that true? Within the empire, Asurians were looked down on in veiled ways, and combined with rumors that he had funded the revolutionary army, the nobles' malice only worsened. Several nobles lowered their heads together and whispered, "What do you think the name Delaporte means?" Delaporte means someone who lives by the city gate. The red-haired noble gave a scornful laugh. Just as I thought. Delaporte was hit by that remark. A noble spoke up in warning, but he is a newly elevated noble personally chosen by His Majesty. To question his loyalty is to question His Majesty's judgment. The red-haired noble hurriedly covered himself. I only said in passing. How would I dare question someone selected by His Majesty? A few noble women gathered together and whispered. A woman actually entered the jockey club. Another waved her fan. How shameless. What on earth is she thinking, barging into a place full of men? One lady lowered her voice. Look, the president of Lux Bank. That Russell. Delaporte walked with his head lowered. Here or there, his steps suddenly halted, his gaze locking onto the figure ahead. Marquis Tristan. No wonder Tristan had appeared at the jockey club. So he had an appointment with the Republicans. It was over the Railway Reform Bill, the Railway and Canal Amendment, a complicated struggle of interests. The Royalists were the main beneficiaries of the canals, and Duke Blanc was one of them. How ironic. The one who had handed over the canal business was Max Russell. This struggle looked simple on the surface. Republicans against Royalists. But Marquis Tristan's involvement changed everything. Now, it was a confrontation between the aristocratic faction and the Emperor's faction. Delaporte let out a soft scoff. That young Marquis. Mr. Delaporte, congratulations on your victory. What is this? Who sent you? The carriage door clicked softly and a shadow fell inside. Delaporte looked up. Get out of my carriage at once. What incredible rudeness. Lady Russell. Madam, please leave while I'm still asking nicely. A hand abruptly tore off the hat. Delaporte's pupils contracted sharply. Freya's gaze did not retreat in the slightest. I came all this way, and you're going to throw me out without even asking why? Inside the carriage, Delaporte's voice was icy. If this is about the amendment, I have nothing to tell you. Leave now, or I'll drag you out myself. A bead of cold sweat slid down. If we were discovered in this situation, both of us would be in trouble. Freya calmly settled in her seat, her eyes steady and resolute. She gave a faint smile. Ashel, Mr. Deleport. Delaport's expression froze. Freya's eyes were sharp. You seem to have forgotten. You're only a baron. You have no authority to drag an imperial princess out of a carriage. So if you want me to disappear quickly, she said clearly, then you must hear my proposal. Deleport lowered his eyes. He fell silent. Deleport studied Freya. A reckless girl with no sense of propriety. That was what I had believed. Was all of that an act? No. Even if the princess was different from what he had imagined, she was still just a young girl. Deleport spoke in a cool voice. I don't know what you're planning, but it's pointless. If it's about the amendment, I can do nothing. Freya said only one word. No, you're going to help me make sure the bill is rejected. Delaport's expression hardened. Cold sweat trickled down. The one pushing that bill was Duke Blanc, second only to the Emperor. How could I possibly? And even more impossible was telling her that the one obstructing her husband was her own father. Deleport leaned back slightly and raised a hand to stop her. Madam, you've come to the wrong person. This is beyond my abilities. The opponent is Duke Blanc. Freya gave a faint smile of understanding. If you mean that amendment, then yes. But that is not my true objective. If we change the target, then it's possible, isn't it? Deleport drew a sharp breath and went still. His fingers suddenly tightened. In just a few sentences, she had overturned everything I expected. Who was behind her? Mux Rishel or Marquis Tristan? Freya only smiled calmly. This young princess, was she truly negotiating this aggressively? Whoever wants to make a deal with me should come out in person. Stop hiding. No wonder she appeared at the jockey club. So there really was a reason. That little fox actually used his head this time. He must be somewhere nearby. Freya's voice pulled him back to reality. Even if you wait, no one will come. Deleport stiffened in alarm, cold sweat slipping down. What did you just say? Freya's gaze sharpened. There is only you and me here. I am your negotiating partner. This is the third time now. I underestimated this princess yet again. A clear mistake. Deleport lifted his eyes. I see. If it's the 50 signing clause, I can exert some influence. But the risk to me would also be considerable. Since you've come so thoroughly prepared, I assume you've also prepared suitable compensation. Freya's voice remained calm. Tell me what you want. Deleport lightly touched his chin with his fingertips. Surely the Duke's family does not make empty promises. His gaze dropped. How about the mining rights owned by the ducal house? Freya lowered her eyes, pressing her fingertips together. That might be a little difficult. The mine is already tied up in another contract. She looked up again, a confident smile curling at her lips. How about this? I'll give you something you absolutely cannot refuse. Something you absolutely cannot refuse. Freya smiled with quiet confidence. Sir, perhaps you've heard the rumor. Delaport's expression shifted slightly. That without Ashurian funding for the revolution would have failed. As outsiders, the Asura family excelled at accumulating wealth. They poured that fortune into the revolutionary army, all to escape a fate of being despised. But after watching them fight and bleed, only for the Republic they won to collapse twice in vain. The frustration they must have felt was beyond imagining. Freya folded her hands on her lap. Her gaze deepened. Deleport looked at her, the corner of his mouth lifting in an unreadable curve. Why are you telling me this? When Ashwill Delaport's secret is revealed, the Empire will once again be swept into the vortex of revolution. Del Anderson will become a republic. In the countless lives I have repeated, Ashwill Deleport was always the leader of the Third Revolution, the hero of the Republic. So I have to win Ashwill Deleport completely over to my side. Freya's gaze sharpened. Why would Auguste, who despises aristocrats, enter the Imperial boarding school? Perhaps his original goal was to create a second Max Russell. Delaport's lips twitched. Freya smiled knowingly. I suppose it failed because in the end, I never let Max go. They couldn't very well make the son-in-law of the Empire's most prestigious family the symbol of a new revolutionary army. The commander of the new revolutionary army. Don't you agree? His hand quietly tightened around a dagger and pressed it to Freya's throat. Deleport lowered his voice. Your Highness, who told you? Freya showed no fear. Benoit Russell. I heard it from him. Benoit Russell said that I had once been a commander of the Revolutionary Army. Impossible. But now he could not be found, so there was no way to verify whether it was true. All I had heard was that the previous Deleport family had funded the revolution. The rest was speculation. Deleport studied her. Does Max Russell know? Freya answered calmly. No, my husband doesn't know. Deleport pressed further. Have you told anyone else? Freya's smile deepened. If I had, the one negotiating with you now would not be me. It would be my father, Freya Blanc. What do you want by bringing this up? It isn't just for the sake of that 50 sonim bill, is it? Freya's folded hands tightened slightly. I don't want to see anyone risk their life over something this petty. I want to protect my husband's company. Please help me. Delaporte's eyes remained cold, the dagger still against her. You may also know who is targeting your husband, don't you? Freya met his gaze directly. I also know whose hands the canal business handled by Benoit Russell fell into before his bankruptcy. Delaporte looked at her. Huh. He gave a quiet laugh. He withdrew the dagger. Delaporte looked at Freya. His most troublesome and dangerous opponent of late was actually a woman barely in her 20s. Delaporte spoke. Asking only for silence is too extravagant a condition. If you help me, I'll make sure you get what you want. Delaporte repeated her words. What I want. A glint flashed in Freya's eyes. The spark of the third revolution. Auguste asked, are you saying your wife won't be coming out today either? Of course not. What management class? Max lowered his head to look at the papers. Yes, about the dress from this morning. Auguste sat on the sofa. Auguste, when is the royal ball? The last Friday of this month. Why are you suddenly asking? He stood up. I'm going out for a while. Auguste asked, what? Where are you going? To the jeweler at Place Vadome. The invitation to the royal ball has arrived. Can we attend together as husband and wife? Freya answered calmly. Yes, I'll help. I need to prepare the dress I'll wear today. Of course. We can start tomorrow. Max nodded. Fine then. He suddenly grabbed Freya by the shoulders. Freya stiffened. What is it? Max's gaze fell on her neck. There was a faint scratch there. Freya instinctively covered her neck. This, she explained, it's nothing. Well, I want to see Mr. Delaporte. I was walking in the gallery and got scratched by a branch. Max's eyes sharpened. An extremely shallow cut. The depth and shape were far too uniform. The wound had come from someone skilled with a blade. Max fell into thought. And now I'm buying her a gift? What does that have to do with my first ball with her? Besides, we're preparing to divorce. The door opened. A saleswoman came up warmly. Welcome. Are you looking for a particular piece of jewelry? Max took a seat. Do you have emeralds? The saleswoman smiled. Of course. I'll show you some. Then she asked, is this a gift? Max replied, yes. The saleswoman asked, and who is it for? Max pushed. My wife. The saleswoman clasped her hands together. Oh my, how romantic. She continued, our store specializes in the finest emeralds. If you'd like, you can even choose the design yourself. Several sets of emerald jewelry were laid out before Max. Necklaces and earrings gleaming together. The emerald necklace and earrings lay quietly there. They were the same color as her eyes. Max's gaze swept across them. Then he gestured. I'll take that one. The saleswoman exclaimed, ah, you have excellent taste. This necklace and earring set was originally custom-made for Lady Delaporte. The saleswoman added, leave us your address, and we'll deliver it to your residence. Max picked up the pen and signed his name on the form. The pen scratched across the paper. The emerald jewelry gleamed darkly.